So that's what you have to do in that regard with Tau. Running away is a big part of that. But anyway, with the battlesuits, that's why you won't see them, because they're very expensive, and I can bring more wounds in Fire Warriors who will do a decent job. They won't do as good, but you do need a few battlesuits as specialist, like, oh, I see you brought Terminators. Well, I have 8 plasma shots. Good luck. Or, I see you have a swarm. Good thing I have all my flamethrowers. Because you might call it list tailoring, I guess. That you're kitting out your battlesuits, but that's called, when you go to war, you plan for what you're doing. And you never saw that video, actually. My big talk about what I think of list tailoring. List tailoring, I'm going to say it now, and I'm going to sum it up a bit more. List tailoring is the game. Who you bring and where you put them is what makes you win or lose. So if you're not going to tailor, if you're not going to build a list to fight a specific army, it means either 2 things. 1, not playing half of the game, or 2, you don't know how. Because you will build your list like this, and that's not always. That's if you're going to a tournament, you need to build to be a rounded army, because you don't know what you're up against. But you don't do that when you know what you're fighting. If you ever challenge myself, I can't speak for the rest of MiniWarGaming. I know they usually try and accommodate and make the most balanced lists as possible. I will try and beat you. I'll play building a list that is made to fight your list. And that's another thing. I want to stop right there. When I say your list, I mean your army. There's a lot of different ways you can play different armies. You can play guard with an entire army, swarm, ridiculous number of guys, or a bunch of transports and go mechanized infantry, or super tanks and bring all like Lehman Russ, or air power and bring all Valkyries. I know that you'll be using the guard, so I won't know what you're going to use in that guard, but I'll plan for what either I think you'll bring or what I will expect you to bring. So let's say I play against these guard guys and I bring a bunch of Meltas and a bunch of railguns and a bunch of very few Fire Warriors, and that's what I go in with, and oh, you brought a swarm. Well, that sucks for me, but that's what happens. Or vice versa. I bring the anti-swarm, or I get lucky and you bring tanks and I bring anti-tank. But you know that I'm going to do that because you know what Tau are, and you know you build your list to make up for your own weaknesses. I know that my guys do not live very well out in the open, ergo I bring a fortification. I know they don't do well in close combat, so I bring units to either distract or keep units away. I know that my army doesn't deal well with monstrous creatures, so I brought anti-monstrous creature guns. Like, that's how you play this game. You build your list to cover up as many of your own weaknesses as possible and expect them to try and beat your weaknesses. If you're bad at close combat, expect them to come after you. If you're bad at shooting, expect them to run. That's just the way it is. So that's my rant, my opinion of how list tailoring works. Expect it. Expect it from anyone, but make your list that good that it doesn't matter. And that's how you'll win. Or won't. I don't know. I win, I don't. Fantasy, it's a bit different. You can do crazy stuff by just building a list for one purpose. Like if you build a list entirely devoted to shooting, which I wouldn't recommend from what I've seen from shooting, you could, well, unless you're dwarves, but yeah, you build your list to do a certain role, and you'll win because it's whoever had the better role, or whoever gets luckier, or whoever had a better tactic, or something along those lines. Anyway, moving on. Jaded Knight. Can't shoot the... Did I say this already? You can't shoot or assault buildings that aren't occupied. Being in the battlements doesn't count as being occupying the building itself. Oh, well, there you go. Jaded Knight. Terra Nord. What? I always bring becalming for my lizards. It's like necessary. Do not feel bad about using your army the way it was designed to be used. Well, you could argue that it's not designed to be used that way, but taking advantage of what's good is definitely a good call, which goes right back into the rant that I just went on about. Pushed 1. Owen, are you using modular movement trays from Games Workshop? I have been considering picking those up. Yeah, I am, and they're good. I would recommend it. I think we sell them too, so you can probably buy them even from us. But they are very good. Being able to make them into whatever shape you want, and they're convenient, and they work well, and they don't break, and all the other stuff. Gazebo. Terrain is a massive part of fantasy. It is a shame that there is always so few in MiniWarGaming's bat reps. Yes, it makes it harder to maneuver, but that's the whole point. Fantasy requires precise movements to be successful. Removing terrain just removes the game. Kinda. You could argue that being in an open field is an entirely different game. Fighting in a forest and fighting in the field are two different things. It doesn't make it any easier or harder, it just makes it different.
Oh yeah,
and precisely moving your units in an open field and precisely removing your units when you can't move are two different things as well. We've started playing with more terrain, and I do like it in a sense that it gives you a different feel. You have to remember that it's also a pain. Regardless of how close it is to the way the game, I would say intended, but I don't think that's the right word. It's just a different way to play. I'm not going to argue. We have lots of terrain. We just don't use it all the time because we find it annoying and it gets in the way and it doesn't make a big difference. Usually what you want to happen will happen regardless because you'll make it happen. And that's that. We will have more terrain. Don't get me wrong. There will be. And there will be. There already is. But that's the reason why you don't see a lot of it, because we don't like using a lot. We will, and I have, and expect more, but the reason why there hasn't been is it's not that you're removing the game, you're playing the game differently. And that's my opinion on that. It's Shadon, or Shaden. ICH Shading, or say that. Nice bat rep. I wasn't too happy with most of your teaching bat reps against Dave. Lately, as they seemed like you slaughtered him without him having much of a chance, but this one really looked fun. Looked like fun. They usually are fun, even though it's one team gets smashed. And my argument to that is, if I was going to play against someone, I play against Dan recently now, because I'm learning this,
I actually called in to get an appointment with you, but then they said they could just do it over.
and learning Eat Legion. He doesn't pull punches. He plays to beat me, which is what I expect. I don't want to win a game that I'm learning just because they didn't try and beat me. I'd rather lose and have to fix my army or learn to play or react to that strategy rather than saying, don't bring that. It's like, oh, that's a good argument. Chess. You get beat by a strategy. And instead of saying, how can I win? How can I outplay that person, beat that strategy? You say, you can't do that anymore. It's like video game logic where, oh, XXB is really good and I can't beat it. You can't use XXB. You say, how do I get around that? Is this correct answer? I know people will argue the other one, but anyway. So, yes, I know it sucks losing, but you do learn from that. You learn more from losing than you do from winning, I think. But that's my opinion. Anyway. Yes, the Slayer army was a lot of fun. Slayers are awesome. And I want to use them again. Grumpy Troll. I don't mean to be that guy. With a name like Grumpy Troll, you don't mean to be that guy. But could you please stop saying daemons? They are daemons. Demons. Nice vid, by the way. Keep them coming, thanks. Well, thank you, and they will. But I'm going to keep calling them daemons. Because if they wanted it to be demons, as you have it spelled D-E-E-M-O-N-S, they would have said that. You could have, they could have, but they chose not to. And in the language that I speak, if you have an E after an A, it becomes an A, not an A. So it's daemons. I'm going to keep doing it. And yeah, hatred is evaluated per unit basis, so if it was the first round of combat for a unit that joins a prolonged combat, they will benefit from hatred. Also, Beastmaster Scourge have 3 attacks each, 2 base, and read the Dark Elves FAQ on the Scourge for why. Because it counts as a hand weapon, even though in their profile it says that the it is included in their profile. Could be. I haven't read the FAQ in a while, but I'll double check that. But most likely they have 2. Because I can't see them having 3, because that's a lot of, Hydras don't need to be better. Regardless if they have 3, I honestly kind of don't want to know, because they don't need to be better, and yeah. But hatred is not equivalent. It doesn't say it's evaluated per unit, it says it's evaluated based on the round of combat. And It's not the first round of combat. That combat has been going on. You just joined it. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. It does mean, though, that you have had an ongoing combat that you are now part of. It's not the first round. You could make that argument both ways. I'd prefer it to be the other way around, where I get it every guy who joins in, because I would just go 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, and just win by waves, because then they'd always get to reroll. But no, it sucks, and it makes it fair, because if I had that, then I'd be as good as High Elves. And don't want to be that cheesy. Next thing you'll be saying, I always want to strike first regardless, and get an extra rank, and all the other fun High Elf stuff. But anyway, that's the comments that I've gone through here, plus a little bit of rambling. So leave your comments below, and I'll answer them.